so you'll know when you can come up and speak.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so we are not, we have to leave this space so you guys come out here. Interpreter. So she's gonna be right there. And a few of you guys also come over here because we're gonna have to see the screen.
Make it out. So it seems.
Sorry, Pastor.
We gotta leave this part open, so come over a little bit. Yep, the interpreter has to come right here.
Okay. Do you want the rest of the 300 up here?
No, just the person that's speaking.
Okay.
And you'll
All right.
give us.
Down is a form is for the interpreter who should be the sign language. Understand that's what you
Yeah.
gotta have. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
sure.
Okay, cool. Beautiful.
My condolences.
Okay, so we're gonna have you guys come out just a little bit because you have to see this screen right here. So you're gonna be on presentation. We're not gonna cover the screen. That's fine right there.
All by yourself.
So Pastor Moore,
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Keith Bennett, Mrs. Aaliyah Harvey Quinn, and myself. Arthur Nick Goose, Boo? He not here yet? Okay. Ceasefire. Bishop Harris. Yeah, I didn't put him at the standard, but he's speaking. Can we all make sure our phones are on silent as well? Vibrate. Okay, come over like.
Chief on deck.
Good to see you guys, Sir Christos. How are you? Freetown, good man.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
Your uniform.
Well, actually, no.
I'll talk with you later.
Yeah,
Everybody check their phones, please. We ready to go? Good morning. Let me start by saying thank you to the community, the mayor for being here today for this press conference. This is my 9th day as interim chief of police, and like many of you are aware, there have been a number of troubling incidents that have taken place over the last few weeks. Inappropriate conduct, drag racing, drifting in our community, totally unacceptable. Over this past weekend alone, 13 guns were confiscated. Despite several fights, there was no significant injuries to the arrestees, and there was no excessive use of force. I could not be prouder of the men and women of this department and what they've had to endure, keeping the city safe for those who live, work, or visit our city. Let me be clear, we will not tolerate the illegal carrying of weapons, violent crimes, and certainly not assaults against our officers. These officers are putting their lives on the line day in and day out to keep us all safe. We are going to support them, and we're going to ensure that if anyone attempts to assault them, interfere with their arrests, that they will in fact be arrested themselves. Our officers have done a remarkable job, but they need support. They need support from this department and certainly from our community. They have that support from me and this executive team, and as you can see here, they have the support from our community. To help ensure a safe venue for everyone, the Detroit Police Department will be implementing a 5-point plan. This 5-point plan is a crowd management plan for the entire city. This 5-point plan that you're about to see is for everyone who visits our city, who lives in our city, who plays in our city. I'm going to walk to the back so you can go to the first slide, please. The 5-point plan is about increasing our police presence, strict noise enforcement, drag racing and drifting, parking lot code enforcement, and community engagement. It's going to address the problems that we've seen at Greektown, but other problems at the riverfront, the neighborhoods, and some of our parks. Next slide. The mayor has authorized 4,000 hours of overtime for me for weekend crowd control management, and has given me an additional 2,000 hours per weekend for drifting and speeding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This allows us full staffing for 911 calls and investigations, and I want to be clear on that. Full staffing for 911 calls. This will not compromise any police services to our neighborhoods. This is in addition to that. The officers will be offered additional overtime opportunities to work this summer crowd management detail on overtime, again, on overtime. The department will deploy additional personnel where crowds require staffing, such as Greektown, Riverfront, Atwater, Riverside, Rouge Park, Baldock Park, and Henderson Park, Irma Henderson Park. We will move this detail as needed. This is not something that we're going to stick to. We will see how the problem trends. If it clears up in one area and starts to develop in another area, we will move this detail, but this is where we will be starting. The Detroit Police Department will adjust deployment, as I've indicated, weekly. We will move deployment to help support traffic enforcement and drifting as well. Next slide, please. We are going to lower the party atmosphere. We understand. We get it. We've all been shuttered in place. We're coming out of COVID. We're reemerging. We understand. But we have to do so responsibly. We cannot have this party atmosphere breaking out in front of homes, in neighborhoods, neighborhood parks to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, loud music, fights, people bringing guns to what should be peaceful events. So we're going to be enforcing strictly the 50-foot noise ordinance from buildings, all buildings. So we're going to tell you first, please turn your music down. But I've directed the officers, we're going to ask you once, and we're going to ticket you. We're taking this very seriously. And the same applies with the vehicle ordinance. If noise is emanating from your vehicle beyond 10 feet, you will be advised, and then you will be ticketed. Business licenses will be suspended or revoked pursuant to our city code. So if we get to your business and you don't want to cooperate, you want to keep that party atmosphere going, you want to keep the loud music going so you can have people loitering in front of your building, we're going to ask you once, and we're going to take your business license. Next slide, please. At this time, we're going to talk a little bit about drag racing and drifting. I'm going to bring Assistant Chief LaValle up to talk more about that in detail, and I'll be back to comment on that from that point. We will have strict enforcement on drag racing. Many of you may have seen some of the vehicles out front. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Assistant Chief LaValle.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about drag racing, drifting. We've had a detail that we've been working all throughout the summer so far. We're going to continue that detail to curb drag racing and drifting throughout the city. And I'll say that this detail involves several components. Some of it involves the utilization of our air support unit, the Michigan State Police air support units, undercover surveillance vehicles, intelligence gathering. If you come to Detroit and you drag race or you drift, and this also includes the utilization of ATVs, off-road vehicles on city streets that are illegal, we will likely come to your house and take your vehicle, and we will prosecute you. So vehicles that are directly involved in drag racing and drifting, we're going to be seizing and impounding them. And then we also are moving forward with forfeiture proceedings on a number of the vehicles. And so when we talk about forfeiture, we're not talking about impounding your vehicle for the night and then you come back the next day, pay a small fee and get the vehicle back. Forfeiture proceedings, when we move forward with that and we're successful with those, the city then owns the vehicle. So if you're willing to take the risk of losing your vehicle permanently and we own the vehicle, then that's a risk that you shouldn't take. So again, like Chief White mentioned, there's a number of vehicles that you may have seen parked outside. Two of those vehicles are Lamborghinis that we recently seized, and we're moving forward with forfeiture. We also found a video that we're about to play that shows you what happens when you come to Detroit and drag race.
Are not going to get in trouble. We could, but we won't. We won't. No. No arrests. I have bail money, but no arrests. Bail money. I'm dead serious. There should be like roughly $1,000. I don't think bail would be higher than that for street racing. Ideally, we don't have to use it. Stay tuned to find out if anybody needs bail money.
So those individuals that you saw in that video, they posted that themselves on social media. They traveled here from the other side of the state to drag race in Detroit. And you see the end result, those tow trucks, that's the Detroit Police Department taking their vehicles. And again, we're going through forfeiture proceedings with them. We have 37 vehicles right now that we're involved in forfeiture proceedings with. And it's a complete mix of vehicles that belong to people from Detroit and people from the suburbs that decide to come to Detroit to engage in that activity. So we'll move on now to the next part of the plan. It involves parking lot and code enforcement. City parking lots, there's an ordinance that requires owners to prevent loitering and boisterous behavior in their lots, to keep the sidewalks around the lots clear, and to have paid attendants on site as long as there's any car remaining in the lot. And so this is an ordinance that we are going to enforce. We do see a lot of parties that are popping up in parking lots, more like tailgate style parties, but they get out of control. So we are going to enforce that ordinance. And in addition to that, when we talk about ordinance enforcement, we are going to be enforcing public order type crimes. So open intoxicants on the street, it is against the law. You cannot have intoxicants on the street anywhere in the city of Detroit. Also, curfew I want to mention. Young people, they need to be supervised. So anybody that's that's 17 and under, where the curfew applies to them, they should not be on the street late hours at night. Parents have responsibility to make sure they know where their children are. So we will be also enforcing parental responsibility on the parents. We don't want to have heavy enforcement on children, but parents are the ones who are responsible for knowing where their children are and that they're behaving properly. So with that, With that, I will turn. Good. All right, with that, I'm going to now turn the mic over to First Assistant Chief Todd Bettison, who's going to talk about the last component of this plan.
Before he comes up, I just want to add something there.
I don't know what that.
I'll take care of that. So when you look at those two cars that were drag racing on our streets in our city, with no regard for our community, with no regard for our residents, we are very serious about this. As you look at those vehicles as you walk in, that's how serious we are, and we're going to continue that enforcement. These are not just words. We are going to do this. So as you see these things happening, you're going to recognize that we're going to have more and more cars in our inventory. And as A.C. LaValle indicated, these vehicles will be converted. We're keeping them. We're going to do everything in our power not to return those vehicles. And we're going to ticket the drivers, and we're going to ticket those who are standing around watching this behavior. Because we've got a full community that we've got to support. And if you're stepping outside in your neighborhood and you're seeing this ridiculous nonsense putting your kids at risk, how would you feel? So these are not just words. They have been put on notice. We will go to your house, we will pick you up, and we will impound your car in your driveway. We will get a search warrant to get it out of your garage. If you think this is okay, come on down. We can use a few more of these vehicles converted over. AC.
Thank you, Chief White. The community, one of the number one complaints that we get as a department is basically the traffic, the speeding, endangering our children and our youth. Whenever there's something that creates circumstances that pose risk to our community, that exposes our children, our elders, and yes, even our police officers to harm, Detroit, our community, always stands up. We come together, we work together as one to solve the issues. For example, Angels Night, the volunteer campaign, one of the largest citizen volunteer efforts in the country to combat Devil's Night. We came together, we worked together, transformed that from Devil's Night to Angels Night, and ultimately, through community and this city coming together, our children can now celebrate Halloween like every other part of this country. We did it together. The community and police make an unbeatable team. Standing with Chief White today are community activists, community influencers, clergy, business stakeholders, who represent hundreds, and if not even thousands, of Metro Detroiters. They stand with us today to denounce violence and all things that put our community at risk. Aaliyah Harvey Quinn is a community organizer and works tirelessly to create a safe environment, along with Keith Bennett. They're from Force Detroit. At this point, I would like to invite Ms. Harvey Quinn up to talk about efforts that they already had in the works to keep our community safe and how they support this community and the Detroit Police Department. Ms. Harvey Quinn and Keith Bennett, could you come to the mic and say a few words?
Thank you for inviting us here. So we are here to represent community, and after the historic increase in gun violence throughout our city, we know that it'll take, as Brother Bettison said, we know that it'll take a partnership, a unique and vigorous, huge partnership with community in order to build a safer Detroit without imprisoning people, without locking people up, without fining people. So that's what Force Detroit stands for. That is what the Fund Peace campaign is about, galvanizing the city towards taking back our streets.
And so starting this Friday night, June the 11th, at dusk, we are asking for 4 communities we have targeted to have peace walks from dusk to 11:55 p.m. We started with 4 areas: Livernois 6 Mile, going up to 7 Mile, East 7 Mile from Gratiot to Ryan, Ruage Park, Joy Road to Greenfield, and the last is downtown Detroit. This is a heavy lift. We're asking people to walk 3 to 6 or 7 miles during those 3 hours. to promote peace, to engage the community, to tell the community it's safe for them to come out on their streets and say, we're tired. We need all of us together. Friday night, tomorrow may not go as well as we want it to go, but we're not going to quit by any means necessary. We want to mobilize the citizens of Detroit to be responsible for the people that they love and that they respect.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey Quinn. Thank you, Keith Bennett. At this point, a community group that is known by many, put in the work for years and years in our city. I want to invite my friend, President of the Detroit 300, Eric Ford. Mr. Ford, would you give a few remarks? Mr. Arthur Edge, representing the Detroit 300. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Arthur Edge. I'm on the executive board of the Detroit 300. I'm here to represent our president, Eric Ford, and the Detroit 300. I want to say good morning to the mayor, our new chief White, and my good friend, Mr. A.C. Bettison. We have worked with DPD and others, these other communities, to make the city of Detroit safe. And we're going to continue to do that. And we're honored that we are continuing our relationship with the DPD and these other partners to make this city safe. We are here to help to make this city safe from downtown to Grosse Pointe to 8 Mile to Telegraph. Our purpose is to ensure the quality of life for the citizens of the city of Detroit. This is a great jewel. I love this city and I do everything, and my partners with Detroit 300 are out here to help to make everything safe. So with saying that, we want to make a difference, and we're going to be out here for whatever DPD needs and the mayor to make Detroit the great city it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edge. I call him Superman. You see he has that voice and everything. And when he shakes your hand, I'm telling you. Negus Vu couldn't make it today, but definitely he wanted to give remarks and just show that the people's action is behind this effort as well to keep our city safe. So they'll have boots to the ground out there over the summer as well. I would like to take this moment to have Quincy Smith from Detroit Ceasefire come up to say a few words. Quincy and the Detroit Ceasefire team right there has just done tremendous work from a community lens, keeping our groups, our youth, and just doing phenomenal work in this city. So Quincy, please come and say a few remarks.
Thank you, AC. Good morning, everybody. Just real quick, as my sister just said, Leah Harvey Quinn, it takes a community. It's going to take all of us. So if you are, affected and you care about this city and you want to see change, we're asking you to get involved. There are ways to volunteer. There are ways to partner. As Mr. Bennett just mentioned, during the Peace Walk, we're going to be on every part of the city, right? Get involved. Find out how you can volunteer. I want to definitely shout out my Ceasefire team. Last summer, we were out there every single day doing the protest. We saw our brothers from 300. We saw Pastor Mo. We saw Mr. Bennett and others making a difference. Why? Because we care and there needs to be a change. So we're committed. We're committed to this partnership, and we're committed to making our city safe. So you will see Ceasefire Detroit out there on the streets, downtown, Greektown, Rivertown. We're out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but definitely not least, to be able to close us out as far as the community perspective, and we have many other partners here as well. We have our Greektown business stakeholders. We have Pastor Griffin, who's standing with us as well, who represents thousands. So Pastor Griffin, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to bring Pastor Mo, the street sweeper, my brother's keeper, to the microphone, and he's been here supporting us out there just tremendously over the years, and he commits to keep that effort going. Pastor Mo.
Thank you, First Assistant Chief Todd Bettison. Much love and respect to everybody in the room, the city, all the city officials, and honor and respect to our mayor and to our new chief, Chief White, and to all my brothers and sisters who are fighting in the struggle to better our city and save our city. I'd like to say, I'm Pastor Mo. I've been watching the city over the last few months, and after being downtown during the George Floyd protest proceedings, and it was something to endure. We were down there like almost over 100 days. It wasn't no 1, 2, 3 day weekend situation. I don't know if people know the full extent. We were down there almost over 100 days, pushing back and fighting for our city that Black lives would truly matter, and not just when there's a police involved in the interaction. It should matter when there's a triple homicide over on Dexter or on Joy Road or on the east side. It should matter when our kids are being ran over by speeding cars. It should matter. We should be out here now, here, not in protest, but in proactive ways to ensure our city is safe. I was downtown this weekend just surveying, just watching, and I was watching the 3 officers, lady officers, and it was 5 young ladies with their phones out, taunting, cussing, disrespecting these officers. They was trying their best not to arrest them because of all the things that's been going on. And I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. And I want to say to our young people, I want to say to young Detroit, listen, I love you. I love you, and I rock with you. I'm here for you. I represent you, but we cannot go downtown. Downtown is where everybody come. It's our best. We display. We come to celebrate, and you can't go downtown and tear it down. You're welcome to come downtown, but you cannot tear it down. And for the parents, talk to your youth. Talk to these young adults, because you're going to end up in court with them, crying about their car being repoed, crying about the insurance being in your name. The insurance is already an issue. You're creating a problem from all people who like sports cars. You're making it hot on them for sport car enthusiasts because you're out here drag racing. You got guns. They shooting. They fighting. The girls are just fighting. No, come on. We got to do better than this. I'm imploring you. I'm telling you that I love you and I fight for you, but I'm not going to fight you fighting for you. You're going to have to get a hold of yourself. I'm asking you out of respect, parents, your children are going downtown, go on your YouTube and look at their videos and talk to them. Now, let me tell you what's going on, because what you see here. Don't get mad and say the police has arrested my child and your child is wrapped around some telephone pole because they're out there racing, they intoxicated. Don't get mad at the chief of police when he's doing this, because what you see here is a love tap. You see Chief White first step is he got us here. I'm here because he's saying, I love you. Because the mayor's saying, we want to get the community, ceasefire, 300, all these groups here saying we want to come with the community love first. I'm here on the love. They know that. So they got us here for a reason. This is Chief White, attempt, better sense, and the mayor's attempt to say, we love you. We want you to come down. Have a nice time. But you cannot come down and just take over and reign tyranny and threaten and fight and bring violence and just dog the city out. We got visitors here. We got to do better than this. The police is trying to engage your child in a proper, proactive way, saying, hey, come on down. We got Commander Hayes. We got Commander Hope. They're always here trying to do community policing in love, and the mayor is supporting that. So when you see these efforts, let's talk and let's be reasonable, because then when they go left, don't say, oh, Black Lives Matter, I want to protest, because we're here now in a proactive way. Am I right, Chief? Trying to show love. So my last word is this: let's enjoy Detroit. We're going to be downtown. We're going to be around town. Let's enjoy our city. Let's enjoy each other. And let's do it in peace. God bless.
Thank you, Pastor Mo, as always, and much appreciated. And It's about the whole entire city of Detroit. We're wrapping our arms around the city. We're taking proactive means to ensure safety for all, to restore and keep order. Chief White. Thank you.
Thank you, First Assistant Chief, and thank you, AC LaValle. So again, this is about safety for all. We want you to enjoy our city. We want you to come down. We want you to come in our neighborhoods, enjoy our beautiful parks, but do so safely. Leave your weapons at home. Illegal weapons will not be tolerated. You will be arrested. Drag racing will not be tolerated. You will be arrested. We know we're a destination town. Many of us have wanted this to happen, and it's finally here. But we have to do so responsibly. We're not going to allow people to disrespect our community, disrespect our business owners, and disrespect our residents. As I indicated at the beginning of my comments, I've been here back now at 9 days. I think 8 of those days, myself and the executive team have been working on this plan. When we brought this plan to our mayor, the mayor gave me 4,000 hours of overtime every weekend for the summer and 2,000 hours for drag racing specifically. That allows me to do this work and not interfere with 911 calls for service and patrolling our community. I just want to say thank you to the mayor, and as I bring him up for these comments, I appreciate the support. Mayor Duggan.
Well, good morning. As I was speaking to members of the Board of Police Commissioners about what we needed to do as an interim chief, we all felt the same thing. We don't have time for a learning curve or a transition period. We've got to have leadership that can act immediately, because here's what I know. Every weekend I get the reports, and I'm driving myself downtown, the riverfront, the parks, and seeing what's going on. But when I look at the gun arrests downtown, when I look at the cars that are being seized for drifting and speeding, pretty much every weekend, half or more are coming from outside the city. That video you saw of the drag racers, those guys were shooting that in their driveway in Kalamazoo, saying, we're going to Detroit to drag race. And so as the state has opened up after COVID, there is a perception that you can come into the city and these laws won't be enforced. And when you see a video of a fight in Greektown, the national image is that's Detroit. What you don't know is that's a lot of people in southeastern Michigan who have decided this is where they could come. And when I watched that video, I have to say I saw it from a little bit different perspective. I saw a fight break out, immediate response from officers on the scene. No officers pulled guns. There weren't shootings. They acted appropriately and effectively. But you cannot put officers in situations where they feel they are in danger for their lives and they have to make split-second decisions. That's where tragedies happen around the country. And so I said to Chief White and his management team, I want a plan quickly that says everybody is welcome in every area of this city, but everyone should be comfortable in every area of the city. And the number of complaints I get from folks who say they're blasting music in my neighborhood park, they're speeding up and down Atwater 7 nights a week and the like, we need to deal with it. And so Chief White said to me, can I have 1 weekend to assess this, which I thought was a reasonable request. And so the team went out and assessed what happened this weekend and came back to me and said this: in addition to the 2,000 hours a weekend on the drifting and drag racing, which has been effective, we've made a dent. We haven't solved it, but we've made a dent. He said, here's what I need. I need 4,000 hours of officer time every weekend to make sure our officers are supported, that I can deploy them in places where crowds are blasting music, are behaving in ways that are starting fights and the like. Wherever it goes, whether it is Greektown or whether it is Rouge Park, we need to be able to respond to disruptive behavior without pulling cars off the everyday 911 calls. And they came in and showed me a plan that says it's going to take 4,000 hours a weekend, which is essentially an extra 250 officers deployed to these areas. I've signed off on that. We are fortunate to be in a financial situation to be able to do that. And then they came back and said what we all know, that this can't just be a police response. I cannot have a neighborhood meeting where I do not hear about I'm awakened at night with cars racing near my house. I'm awakened by people blasting music. I'm afraid for my children to play in the front yard. I can't go to an area because there's so much disruptive behavior. And so we are going to respond to those complaints, and we're going to do it. I'm really pleased that Detroit 300 and the other community groups will be a part of this. The other thing is, we're going to hold businesses accountable. Make no mistake about this. Businesses playing music out on the street after 10 o'clock at night is attracting groups who couldn't legally go inside and drink. And so we have created a party atmosphere by people ignoring the city noise ordinance. And I'm really pleased about the fact that the chief and Assistant Chief Bettison and LaValle have been sitting down with business owners in the Greektown area in particular saying, this is the law. Music is intended for your patrons inside. It is not intended to be blasted onto the street. They've sat down with the parking lot owners and say, we're not going to have pop-up events where your attendant went home at 8 o'clock and a party rages on in your parking lot until 2 in the morning, causing disruptive behavior. You are responsible for your business operation. And the response this past week, and they've been meeting day after day, has been very positive. The business owners are saying, if everybody else is going to follow the rules, we will too. So this is where we're going. The point of today is to say, we don't want to arrest anybody. We're here to say we want everybody in the city to be able to enjoy every part of the city. And if you come down, whether it's downtown or Chandler Park, wherever it is, if you're behaving in a positive, respectful way, we want you to have a good time. But if you're going to behave in a way that starts fights, that you're carrying weapons, it's amazing how many weapons DPD is arresting for people who, I tell you, officers can spot bulges on clothes. I don't know why we have so many of these that get arrested with illegal weapons. And I talked to Prosecutor Worthy, who is testifying in Lansing on some key legislation, where she would be here herself to say that she will be supporting Chief White in this effort. So this is where we're going. We're going to start on a constructive and positive basis in partnership with the community. And I'm really excited to see what this management team does. Transitions are not easy, but I'm really impressed by what I've seen out of the plan, and we're going to see in the coming weeks how DPD responds, and I'm confident they'll do it well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we'll entertain any questions.
Any media with questions, can you come up to the podium and state your name and what media outlet you're from?
Going Interim Chief, I'm Bryce Huffman. I report with Bridge Detroit. As the mayor said, and maybe someone else said earlier, in those videos we've seen in Greektown, police did not use weapons, they just used their hands. Is that something that they've been trained to do recently, or is that something that the officers just did on their own accord?
Well, as I said in another interview, I think we have some of the best trained officers in the country. They exercise de-escalation techniques well. And, you know, some of the videos that I saw, and I saw different angles. I saw body camera as well as the ones that were in social media. The incidents were troubling, but they used their training. And as they engaged the citizens, oftentimes attempting to save the citizens. There was one incident in particular where one of our officers responded to a vehicle fight where a passenger in the vehicle, female passenger, was being punched repeatedly in the face and neck area by the male driver of the vehicle. When the officers engaged, the male driver attacked the officer, and the officers secured the situation, no injury to the suspect, even though he did a leg sweep, took her down, and then landed on top of her. She ended up in the hospital. So, you know, unacceptable, cannot continue, will not continue, and we will be pursuing charges on him.
All right, and just one more question. I came a little late, so I apologize if this was already covered. Could you just go over again the curfew and what youth in the city should be aware of heading into the summer?
Well, being responsible. I mean, after 10 p.m., you're 16 years old, you should not be out alone. And if you're with your parents or you're with adults, just behave responsibly. As the mayor indicated, and as everyone has talked about today, we're not looking to lock everybody up. That's not what the goal is. But we certainly are going to make sure that people conduct themselves appropriately, and if they do not, they will be arrested.
All right, thank you.
Chester Blackey with Channel 4. You mentioned Greektown, East Side, West Side. Any specific plans for Belle Isle? You've been closing it down earlier before, and any plans on Belle Isle?
Well, we haven't been closing it down. The Belle Isle is run by the state, and it's a state park, and it's enforced by state law enforcement.
You're going to have more officers on Belle Isle?
We're not responsible for Belle Isle. It's a state park, and it's being run by state law enforcement.
I had a couple questions. George Hunter, Detroit News, but it dawns on me, the Belle Isle thing, if I could add one extra question. How much of Belle Isle closing is causing a lot of this, do you think? Do you think that's a fact? Because I remember when it first, was taken over by the state, people were saying they're seeing a spillover into parks and hanging out. Is that driving any of this at all?
So there are a lot of things driving this. One certainly is that people have been pent up so long all over the country. I'm talking to mayors who have people coming out looking to have an event. Certainly when Belle Isle is closed, that adds to it, but that's only one of a number of factors. And I had a long conversation with the governor this week and really talked about Belle Isle enforcement there, the use of Belle Isle and the like. And so there's no question when you close that street, traffic, you've seen it backs up on Jefferson for a mile. And I think we're going to get really good coordination from the state. But that is one of many factors.
And Chief, it's been suggested to me by an editor actually, who said, he's questioned, that your plan, your first plan that you said, and then this plan, that these are pretty aggressive for an interim chief. How would you respond to that? Do you consider yourself an interim chief, or are you just a police chief?
Well, I mean, interim is a designation that the mayor and the city is going to use to select a permanent chief. I'm the chief. And, my problems are not interim problems. They're problems that I need to address and enforce the laws of the city.
One more question. Your counseling background, how do you, we touched on that the first day, but how do you plan on integrating that into your law enforcement? How do you meld the two disciplines?
Well, with regards to today's press conference, as you just indicated, I'm the interim chief, but I'm not the interim therapist. So the process is this, the only intersection with therapy in this is all behavior is predictable. So if you come to Detroit, you violate our laws, you disrespect our community, you can predict that you're going to be arrested.
Thank you, Chief.
Hello, Chief. Eli Newman from WDET. I guess I'm just wondering, this year has been challenging for law enforcement for a number of reasons, but compared to, I guess, where we were last summer to where we are now, can you give some insight in terms of the difference that maybe we're seeing in terms of non-fatal shootings, the number of drifters, the number of illegal gun seizures, things like that?
Yeah, all those are very different issues. I mean, you can go back to the fact that we're coming out of an unprecedented, which is the understatement of the century, unprecedented times. We've all heard that. But, COVID crisis, all of us not being able to get out and to fellowship, to see our friends. And so all at once, we're all free of that, even though we're still in a COVID emergency and there's a lot around that. But the numbers are trending in the right direction, so things are opening up, people are coming out. And again, nothing wrong with that. Come on out, have fun, have safe fun. Visit our city, enjoy our parks, enjoy our downtown, enjoy our neighborhood parks. The problem is, though, when that turns to bad behavior, when that turns to disrespecting the community, when that turns to people posting videos from Kalamazoo and drag racing in our neighborhoods, that's just an unacceptable standard. You can't have that. We're not going to have that. When you talk about the guns and bringing guns to an environment where you should be recreating, that's a problem. And as long as we see illegal gun activity, we're going to make those arrests. And your other question, I'm sorry.
Non-fatal shootings and homicides.
Yeah, so there's an uptick around the country with non-fatal shootings. Certainly in major cities we're seeing that. And by the time the homicide happens, there's a number of social issues that drive that. We talked earlier about, the mental health crisis in this country, as well as a number of other things that drive us to make poor decisions and instances of conflict. So I'm not going to get into all the socialization of crime. However, we're seeing the numbers uptick. We are working with a plan right now. We're building our crime strategy, and we're deploying our resources to try to drive down that crime and identify those violent predators of our community.
Sure. And given that there seems to be a pretty pronounced social media aspect, at least especially for the drifting, I guess I'm wondering how many officers with the department are like monitoring these kind of social media activity? How is that? Because we have like the on the street patrols, but what about like on the web?
A lot of officers, and we're going to continue to do that monitoring, and we're going to continue to get that information. There's a lot of pieces to this plan that's not being revealed. There's some monitoring, there's some investigative functions that we're not going to get into. There'll be some work in the communities that are being victimized by this activity that we won't get into, but we've got a handle on what our plan is and how we're going to execute it.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Chief. John Hewitt, WWJ. Just one question for you. Can you provide, as best you can, a bit more context on drifting and drag racing post-pandemic aside, people wanting to get out aside? How many incidents do we talk about on a given night, on a weekend? I'm assuming this has been a problem for years, whether it's more so now. Can you provide a little context in what you see?
Well, it's certainly more so now than when it started a couple years back. Like I said, I've been back 9 days. I'm going to bring AC LaValle up to give you a little bit more context into what they saw at the end of last summer.
Thank you.
AC LaValle.
All right, thank you. So we have a number of areas in the city that are, I guess, what we would consider hot spots for drifting and drag racing. So we monitor those locations, but we also monitor social media, use our undercover officers that are embedded into the crowd to kind of determine where groups are going, and then we set up at those locations, try to do enforcement at those locations. But I guess a lot of it just depends on the night, the weather. We have seen significantly higher amount of activity this year, in the beginning part of this year, than we did last year. And so through a lot of our enforcement actions, through the seizure of the vehicles and the arrests we've made, so far we feel like the numbers are coming down. I think that the message is getting out there, that it's not legal and that there will be enforcement action taken for people who violate that. So as the summer continues to progress, we're going to continue to keep our high level of enforcement activity with regard to drifting and drag racing, and just keep those numbers down.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, ask that you all join us out front. We can do a walk and talk with the vehicles that we've seized. And thank you for your attendance. Thank you, community.